The Vikings activate veteran cornerback Patrick Peterson, who he's been decent over the last year, but it's just there just seems to be a fallout of where he fits in the scheme. Eagles had activated Miles Sanders, and the Chiefs had also activated Clyde Edwards-Helaire heading from IR heading into Week 11. Titans placed Bud Dupree on IR, and the Steelers had placed Kevin Dotson on IR and had promoted safety Carl Joseph from the practice squad. Broncos signed Courtland Sutton to a 4-year, $60.8 million deal, $34.9 million guaranteed. Eagles signed linebacker TJ Edwards, 1-year extension worth up to about $3.2 million, $2.15 million is fully guaranteed. Now, entering this game, and I'm going to talk about the Cowboys and Chiefs in a recap video. No Amari Cooper, as we will get to. No Tyron Smith, he was not able to go. You're starting Connor McGovern has his first career start at left guard, taking over for Connor Williams. And it couldn't get worse for Thanksgiving, but it somehow did. Ceedee Lamb ended up suffering a concussion, and Thanksgiving is uncertain who the Cowboys face off against the Raiders in Dallas. Saquon Barkley is expected to play versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The hope is that he's okay, that ankle is better than the last we saw him when they faced off against the Cowboys. He ended up turning his ankle, and it looked like his ankle just blew up on him. The hope is that he's okay, and if something happens close to that, it won't happen as severely. Packers left tackle Elton Jenkins ends up tearing his ACL. He's done for the year. It's unfortunate. Injuries do happen, but especially when you don't have David Bakhtiari, where that's his position, and Elton Jenkins really more like your guard that they can move anywhere on the offensive line. Losing him for the year is really devastating, especially to Aaron Rodgers, where he's going to have to find ways to get protection with some of these second or even third linemen to protect him when they face off against teams where their pass rush is top notch and they can get to the quarterback. Justin Fields against the Ravens did get a little banged up. He suffered bruised ribs. There's nothing going for what is going to happen if he's going to miss a week or if he's going to not and he's going to be okay and he can go next week. It's all going to be up for debate. Hopefully by Wednesday or Thursday we'll get information on that. But for right now, that's the news. Now I'm going to go into this because I have to. Because I don't understand this. And if you can see on this paper, it says, I'm going to see if I can get that close. It says Jacob bashes ESPN. That's what it says. I'm putting this down. I don't get ESPN. I don't get it. I don't understand it. If you win a game, one game, even if it's against the worst opponent ever, you're considered the greatest player to almost ever live. And then they go and say, well, like for instance, they said this ludicrous thing about Dak Prescott is not in the MVP conversation. Where to begin? Patrick Mahomes, though, is in this conversation somehow. I don't get that. Makes no sense. Patrick Mahomes has the worst season so far of his career. Okay? he struggled against the Cowboys defense, where the Cowboys offense could not get anything going. They end up, no Amari Cooper, Tyron Smith's out, Randy Gregory's out, DeMarcus Lawrence is out, no pass rush really in general. Michael Parsons was playing defensive end pretty much the whole game. They couldn't stop the run. Nothing was going right for the Cowboys, and still, the Chiefs only scored 19 points. Patrick Mahomes did nothing this whole game. He ended up throwing an interception, getting strip sacked. He didn't do anything. So if Dak Prescott isn't in the conversation, neither is Patrick Mahomes. It doesn't make any sense. Because if we're actually talking about it, the MVP isn't that you have one or two bad games. The MVP is, are you the best quarterback of that year? And so far, you can make the case that Dak Prescott is. Because he's been the best. And that Cowboys team is roaring. But when you are so banged up that there's nothing you can do, and yet somehow, some way, you find a way to score some points, but the Cowboys got down out of all their drives. They got through the Chiefs on the Chiefs side of the field inside their 30 5 times. Only scored 9 points. Now, granted, the Chiefs had a good defensive game plan. I'm not taking any away from Steve Spagnuolo, but you can't take it away from Dan Quinn either. You can't. That team, after the Chiefs scored 16 points, gave up only 3 points for the rest of the game. Now, I have to hand it to the fact that Butker misses an extra point, the fact that Butker also misses a field goal. But that whole game, you still think the Cowboys have a chance to win that. And then ESPN says, we'll blame Mike McCarthy. It's not his fault. It's not his fault if the offense can't get anything going. And also, by the way, Zeke ends up getting banged up throughout the whole game. So he only has about 15 touches. And Tony Pollard only has about 9 touches. What do you want them to do? There's nothing they can do. And then also, the fact that how the Chiefs play, they grab you a lot, and there's a lot of no calls. You can't just say that there's no calls. The officiating, and I'm going to say this, no one else is going to say it, the officiating's been terrible this whole year. It's been terrible. There's been times where I'm like, what? How? They called the false start on the center yesterday. The center literally just snapped the ball. That's all he did. He didn't do anything wrong. He just snapped the ball. It makes no sense. Then you have the Chiefs player who proceeds, as the Cowboys were getting frustrated, they went and ended up punting. And the Chiefs guy would not let go of C.J. Goodwin. He wouldn't let go of him. He just kept grabbing him the whole way. They weren't throwing the flag. So C.J. Goodwin got upset. So he ends up grabbing the Chiefs player's face mask. I understand, C.J. Goodwin's a special teamer. So if you pissed him off that badly, I'm sorry. What do you expect is going to happen? I don't get that. So he ends up grabbing his face mask. They end up going to the ground because the Chiefs player ends up turning C.J. Goodwin. So they bring him to the ground. So it's not a fight. There was no punches thrown. But when the Chiefs player is getting pulled away by Patrick Mahomes and a few other Chiefs, he then proceeds to pretend to shoot a gun in the air. So the ref threw a flag. That's fair. That's absolutely fair. You're not supposed to do that. And then the referees decide to all get together. The 7 officials say they all get together and be like, well, what did you see? What did you see? What did you see? And then they go and say, well, there was also a face mask, but we didn't call that before, but we saw it on the big screen. Which Mike Pereira is saying, you can't do. You can't do that. You can't use the replay as another way to put a flag on the field because that's not in the rules. You can't call a face mask on a play that you didn't call. But that's the officiating. So there was times yesterday I was like, in my mind, I was like, the Cowboys, it's not 11 on 11, it's 11 on 18 or 11 on 17. Because they got to face these officials that have not been good this year. And that's not just the Cowboys or any other team that's faced the Cowboys. It's every team in the league where they've had this issue where the referees just decide to go in game on their own because there was a chance that the Cowboys scored a touchdown. Travarius Ward ends up grabbing Michael Gallup. Then they start holding some of these Cowboys players. It was wild, and none of them were called. So the NFL has to fix that. ESPN's trying to say that it's only one guy's fault. It's Dak Prescott's fault. It's Mike McCarthy's fault. No. Dak took all the blame, which is what he's supposed to do, but that's not his fault. That the team around him could not do anything. They couldn't run the ball. They couldn't pass block. They couldn't do anything. It didn't matter. Terrence Steele got beat twice. On one play, he didn't even move. What do you expect Dak Prescott to do? It's not his fault. It's not Mike McCarthy's fault. It's the player's fault for not understanding what they're supposed to do within the game. And the defense played well, just the offense was terrible.